Are you ready?
Yeah.
Yes!
This is the Ross Kaminsky Show.
You're a great American.
Now, Ross Kaminsky.
Come on, man.
On Denver's talk station, 630 KHOW.
Let me give you one quick story before I get to the main thing I want to talk about in this segment. You all probably recall the name Carter Page from the Trump years, a guy who was sort of a wannabe foreign policy advisor to Donald Trump. He is a former investment banker. Seems, on paper at least, like a fairly smart dude. When you hear him interviewed, he seems, all right, like more or less a normal dude. But he was something of an expert on Russia and was trying to do business in Russia and was trying to get involved in President Trump's foreign policy advisor circle for whatever reason. I don't know if it was ego or just wanting to help out or wanting to look for ways to make money, whatever. I don't think he's a bad dude, but he was sure painted as a bad dude in the media, and he was subject to FISA warrants on an ongoing basis, and that got out to the public, and he was just pilloried in the press, and he was basically in the media, he was kind of turned into a guy who many Americans thought was essentially a Russian agent trying to work his way into a presidential campaign or presidential administration. He talks about having, actually, here's a quote that he told a judge in a hearing a couple days ago, and I'll tell you what the hearing was about. He said, "This manufactured scandal and the associated lies caused me to adopt the lifestyle of an international fugitive for years." He said, I often have felt as if I had been left with no life at all. Each member of my family was severely impacted. He also noted that he has received multiple death threats because of this. In fact, what was going on at some point with Carter Page, where all these liars who worked for the FBI and then their people in the mainstream media basically called Carter Page a likely mole for the Russians, when in fact what he had been, or at least he says what he had been, and it's uncontroverted as far as I can tell, he says that he had been a source for the CIA against Russia. And I think that's probably true. Whereas the media spun it the other way. Now, one of the main reasons the media spun it the other way is that a guy named Kevin Kleinsmith, who was a lawyer working for the FBI, falsified an email. He falsified an email to basically change what the email meant. In particular, he altered an email about Page so that it said that Page was not a source for a U.S. intelligence agency, when in fact he was a source. And that lie in that key email by Kleinsmith went to the FISA court to help support the argument for ongoing FISA warrants against Carter Page. Right? The American government spying on an American based on a lie. And the lie came from a lawyer working for the FBI. These are the kind of people who must 1,000% of the time abide by the law and the highest standards of ethics. So what is the proper punishment for an FBI lawyer who intentionally falsifies an email to cause a result, namely the approval of a FISA warrant that they might or might not have gotten without that lie? It is possible. And in fact, the judge in the case suggested that he thinks the warrant would probably have been proved anyway without the lie, but not certainly. And by the way, this judge, his name is James Boasberg, and we talked about him yesterday because he's the judge who threw out the cases against Facebook, and I applauded him for that yesterday. But this judge is the presiding judge of the FISA court. It's called the FISC, actually, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. This guy's the presiding judge. So, what is the appropriate penalty for a government lawyer lying to the fisc? Well, 5 months ago, we learned that this lawyer was going to get probation only. The sentence of this judge, probation only. And yesterday, we learned that Kevin Kleinsmith agreed to a 1-year bar of his ability to practice law. They're not removing they're not disbarring him, which is what should happen. He should be disbarred and imprisoned. He used the power of his office, violated the law, violated his ethics in order to cause the federal government to not just spy on, but ruin the life of an American, because whoever the leakers are and all that mess also told the media, who then spread all this stuff about Carter Page. I truly feel bad for Carter Page. And so not only did he get probation rather than jail, yesterday we learned, or 2 days ago, I guess, we learned that his ability to practice law is going to be suspended for a year, except, check this out, they decided to start the suspension back when he originally, retroactively to when he made his guilty plea last August. And of course, he's going through all of this stuff now, and he wouldn't have been even attempting to practice law over the past 10 months. So what they just announced was a 1-year suspension of his law license, but the beginning date was retroactive to 10 months ago. So he's going to be able to start practicing law again in a little over a month. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. What a complete failure by this judge. You know, he said, well, the guy has had a decade of otherwise good government service and things like that. I mean, what a misbehavior against Americans by government officials should be some of the most harshly punished crime there is. Right? They've got to go to prison. If they're lawyers, they've got to have their law licenses revoked.
Or be
all right.
To eat this.
Oh my gosh. What is that, Shannon?
A snack.
Can you come around here? I know you're shy.
Well,
Look what, are we on YouTube right now?
uh-huh.
All right, if you go to YouTube right now, you'll see producer Shannon's smiling face and what he just brought in. I can't believe I'm even touching these things.
I'll get you sanitizer.
A bell pepper and a plastic squeezy container thingy of Lighthouse Chunky Blue Cheese. Two of the worst things in the world. I think you're absolutely right. I think Kevin Kleinsmith should be forced to eat these every day. Tell me you're not about to eat this.
Oh, yeah.
Is this your breakfast?
Sure.
Oh, my
Something
goodness.
to get me through the day.
We have weird schedules here, but Shannon's schedule is much weirder than I am. He gets to the station long before I do, and so sometimes he ends up having breakfast like during the show if he can catch a minute. But bell pepper and blue... Did you... Look, I know you have blue cheese from time to time, and I know you, for some reason, actually like blue cheese, but did you bring the bell pepper in just to mess with me?
Completely.
Yeah. All right.
But you'll be happy to know that it was a manager's special at King Soopers, so I didn't spend a lot.
Oh, that's good. I could tell it was a little bit mushy. It wasn't quite as firm as a bell pepper normally would be, but you're going to eat it anyway? Yeah. Wow.
Producer Shannon.
Yes?
I just needed to throw that in.
Producer Shannon? Yeah, okay. So that's not a bad idea, though. If you're not going to put Kevin Kleinsmith in prison, and you're not going to revoke his law license, make him eat bell pepper and blue cheese every day for, I don't know, a few years. Or give him an option. Put that in court. You can either have to eat bell pepper and blue cheese every day for 3 years, or you can go to prison for a year. Everybody's going to take prison. Everybody's going to take prison. Yeah, it's like what we were talking about yesterday with the James Corden thing. In fact, why don't you put my audio up, Shannon? Why don't we do that again for a second? Because I didn't say as much as I wanted to about that. Gosh, this is a weird radio segment. So we talked briefly about this, but I didn't say as much about it as I wanted to because I ran out of time. So James Corden, British dude who reminds me a lot of Ricky Gervais, who does this segment on a late show. And he's talking about it with some other late night host whose voice you will recognize here.
Spill your guts or fill your guts.
You know, when I said we should go out to dinner sometime, this is not what I had in mind.
Well, let's have a look at what we've got here. Oh my word! So we've got jellyfish just here. We have chicken feet, ghost pepper hot sauce. We have a bull penis, a 1,000-year-old egg, which I don't even know how that's possible.
Yeah.
A fish smoothie.
Ugh.
Pig blood curd. And a baloo, which I don't even know really what that is.
I don't know either. Wow, it all looks so terrible. And I know people can't smell it, but it doesn't smell
really
good either.
Disgusting.
Yeah.
It's horrific.
This fish smoothie is giving off, it smells like being at the beach.
So, okay, so two things. First of all, just for a little fun, I want you to text me at 57739 or email me at ross@khow.com. You can do either one, but I think text would be better if you can. Text me at 57739 and tell me what is the grossest thing you ever ate and where did you eat it and what did it taste like? All right, what is the grossest thing you ever ate and where and what did it taste like? Text me at 57739 and tell me. Now, I want to make a slightly more serious point about this whole thing. I mentioned on the show yesterday that the reason this came up, it made a little news, is that somebody started a petition to try to force James Corden to stop doing this segment because they think that too many of the things that Corden was saying were gross are foods that come from Asia and that therefore this is kind of a racist segment and that he needs to stop doing it and he needs to apologize. And what I said and what I'll say again is that I'm guessing that the vast majority of the 46,000 people who signed this petition are bored, upper middle class white liberals who have nothing better to do than to find other people to feel offended for, because that seems to be the currency of choice on the left in the United States of America today. The more offended you are for other people, which really is an inherent part of wokeness, the cooler you are on the left. So you talk about cultural appropriation. You talk about how white women have to apologize if they wear their hair in cornrows because that is appropriating African-American culture. Whereas my thought on that is, first of all, if I had enough hair, I might try the cornrow thing just so I could demonstrate that I had enough hair to do it, even though I don't actually think it would be a good look on me. Maybe somebody who's really, really good with video editing can get a picture of me and then put cornrows on my head with the video editor and send it to me and we see how I would look. But anyway, to me, my response would be, well, that's a compliment. Here's a part of our culture, and in this case, I guess you might call it, broadly speaking, the fashion sort of culture of African Americans with the cornrow. And, these white women want to emulate it and they get, they have that done in their hair. Well, that's a compliment. Isn't it? Don't they say that mimicry, or whatever word they use there, what a synonym is the highest form of flattery? To me, it's a compliment. You want to have a birthday party with a theme of geishas or mariachis. It's not putting anybody down. Why would any rational person be offended by that? And by the way, what's wrong? And don't answer this question, but it's a rhetorical question. What's wrong with doing things that are representative of the way another culture often does things? There's nothing wrong with it. Absolutely nothing. Anybody gonna complain about, I don't know, here's an example. Baseball is very big in Japan. So is anybody going to complain about a Japanese person, guy or gal, doesn't matter, who does something to make himself look like a Caucasian American New York Yankees fan going to a baseball game? No. Look, wherever you live in the world, please feel free to culturally appropriate anything you want from America, except for the gang violence in the streets of Chicago. But it's a form of compliment, and it's interesting. It makes life more interesting. I'm sure it's interesting for the people in Japan. It's interesting for the people here. There's nothing wrong with it. Here's the other thing. And this is actually just coincidental, but it fits in really well. So through the glass, I just saw producer Shannon pour some blue cheese salad dressing onto a plate. Is that cut up bell pepper? He's dipping cut up bell pepper into the blue cheese. Now, these are two of the worst things in the world, and it's not like math where you multiply two negative numbers and it comes out to a positive, right? Blue cheese and bell pepper are both bad, and putting them together does not magically make either one of them better. They're both terrible. They're gross. They're really, really gross. And I love talking about food in an objective way like that, as if there is an absolute black and white answer. I know that I'm being ridiculous when I say that bell pepper is objectively bad, even though it is, because there are some people who incorrectly think that bell pepper is all right. And I love talking about food that way, and I actually think it's kind of amusing. And I think it's kind of amusing when James Corden does it too, talking about balut or century eggs or raw jellyfish or whatever. And it doesn't matter that some of the things are from Asia. They're gross. And it doesn't matter if you like them. I can still say they're gross, and then you can still say that they're delicious, and the things that I like are gross, and we'll all just have fun with it. I think fun's illegal now.
This is Denver's Talk Station with Ross Kaminsky Now, Tom